Alright guys, we are back, but we're currently waiting for S of Dawn and his opponent as currently being decided. So we figured while we're killing some time, we're going to take another gander at the Emperor's Challenge. Now, Emperor's Challenge is almost over. Chaos's reign of terror is coming to an end, so we're just going to play for it. So give you guys an idea if you haven't done it before. It's a very nice little challenge.
Yeah, it's really cool getting the, you have a different challenge every day for it. Whether it's the damage or I think there's one that like kills creatures if they don't have enough life. There's one I think it makes everything 1/1 or something like that. So always really cool to see what the daily challenge will be, and it's ending soon, so got to get these done before if you're still missing something.
We don't get the Explorer, so my hand's a little clunky, so I'm going to throw these guys away. I'll keep this just in case.
Whenever you play a creature, it takes 3 damage. I picked the wrong deck. And I kept the wrong cards.
Well, I have a wood elemental. Things are fine for me. I can work with this at least.
My Underground Brigand is going to be useless.
So Moonfaster is going to be going up against S of Dawn in our next game. We'll quickly run through this Emperor's Challenge. Just give Moonfaster a moment to collect himself.
Awesome. Canadian representing here.
And S of Dawn is a previous Monthly Cup champion. He won the last Monthly Cup, so he is already a champion, looking to claim his second here this time at Monthly Cup 15. See if he can do it.
I literally can't play anything. Oh, that's unfortunate. Yeah, hoping Moonfossil will put up a good fight against the S of Dawn. Of course, yes, winning 3-0 means he's bringing something very strong as his starting deck. And coming off first place, he's going to want to protect that bounty. But Moonfasa had a pretty good run through the qualifier. Qualifier number 2 ended up facing a couple players who are in the Monthly Cup here. So he's going to have that experience of playing some of these top players.
Yeah, Moonfaster is a new name for me, and also another Canadian representative, so that's nice as well. So, get Canada in competitive Faeria. I'm curious to see how he performs. It
always seems like we have I Win Again's been pretty much a staple of the Monthly Cup for quite some time. We had Cappuccino way back before he kind of moved over to the casting side for some of the Monthly Cups now. Oh, the aggressive Steam Fortune Forcer. But it always seems like we have 1 or 2 more Canadians pop up here and there. So very cool to see another new Canadian face and a 3-2 victory. So continuing on with his run.
We've only ever had 1 Welsh representative, and that was me. Oh, I don't really need Aurora here. I think I'll just clear and I'll just double power up. Just go in. Just keep these Steam Forges in check, and I'll smog. Oh wow, that's not a card you see every day.
No. All right, I can finally play a creature. Does it survive? Should, right? Yeah. Okay.
Plays it and just dies straight away.
12. I have a Gift of Steel, but I don't think... Do you have 2 buffs?
No, I can't find lethal this turn.
Okay.
If I drew... No, I won't be able to find lethal. No way.
Okay. Because I have the Gift of Steel, so I could have powered up your Octopus to 10, but...
Oh, I wish I'd drawn that card. Oh well. Cheeky Willow. Can just protect
Oh no,
me.
you didn't move.
Oh, did you have Horsemaster?
Yeah.
Ah no! Anti-synergy! I didn't know you had the Horsemaster.
That's alright. Another Walking Fortress.
One either side, spreading his damage here.
Look at this cheeky play.
Oh. Oh, I'm getting that clear off. Letting the octopus.
Not that it
do the
matters,
work.
because it's your turn next, but...
There we have it. Let's go for some BM. Oh, I'll tell you what's hilarious is the AI logic. Did you read about that?
Oh yeah, I saw the posts about that this week.
I was cracking up. I was just like, this is pretty funny, The AI works out that if it can't win, the best course of action is to flame burst itself. I didn't even get to that. All right, you guys. That is some interesting AI. I wouldn't have changed that, to be honest. I would have kept it as kind of like a personality trait for the AI. If it just gets salty and just flame bursts itself whenever it feels like it's gonna lose.
I get more annoyed when the AI draws and it doesn't have the lands to play anything, because it gets in a cycle of I don't have an answer, so I need an answer.
Oh, AI logic. Gotta love it. But we have round 2 coming up, guys. As of Dawn versus Moonfasa. New kid on the block versus a tried and tested champion. Let's see if the Canadian can take a series off a very established player now within the competitive scene. He's a top ladder climber, a top, tournament player now. He's kind of a full-on package as of Dawn recently, and it doesn't look like he's easing up based on his results.
Yeah, he's played in every qualifier that he's been able to since April. Played in both April, both May, both June, and then qualifier 1 of July and August both qualified. So he's been in, this is 5 straight monthly cups and coming off of a really good win in the last one. So have to see what he's running as his starting and what Moonfasa is going to bring as well.
Yeah, I'm interested if we're going to see another Grizzly Green Rush. I doubt it, but you don't know who Lou has been communicating with in preparing his lineup, who he's been working with. So it'd be interesting to see. So we'll get into this match, guys. As of Dawn, Monthly Cup 14 champion, going up against Moonfasa, the new blood of this tournament. Let's see what happens. And the orbs activate. Red Combat going to be a starting deck for S of Dawn. Proved to be a very powerful choice for him in the previous Monthly Cup, doing a lot of work. And this is probably the tier 1 deck of the meta right now, but the thing with Faeria is when one deck becomes tier 1, counter decks start to crop up more, such as Green Rush.
Yeah, really cool to see that as the meta develops. Of course, Red Combat, we saw how well represented it was last Monthly Cup. Of course, there's all of these different tech choices you can go for as well. We saw Moonfasa actually toss away a Choking Sand that would have probably been very nice into if this Underground Boss comes down from S of Dawn. But we actually see the Mace Man coming out in Moonfasa. We saw it in the Green Rush from Lou, but it's a card that really developed even into last Monthly Cup as well, because it was so good at taking out these 4 life creatures that were in a lot of decks as early collectors.
Yeah, the blue-green ramp list was very powerful at the start of the Oversky, but it has been tweaked and refined into a much more fairer and, generally reasonable archetype. But in response, a lot of players have dropped it in favor of stuff like Red Combat, other blue or green, maybe mono green to combat these red control lists. But Mace Man, still making a big appearance in these decks, even though his primary target to clear was Wood Elemental.
Yeah, it still is a decent enough card, even in this situation where it's an Underground Brigand that's been buffed with the Gift of Steel. Mace Man and a Soul Drain clears that very efficiently. So it'll be very interesting to see what Moonfasa's kind of follow-up is here. He has the Charger, which is really nice, but just really needs then some other combo piece, maybe a Flash Wind. If he's running something like Kaleem's Training, he'll be able to combo very nicely to clear off the early creatures from S of Dawn. And that's where red combat can sometimes struggle, is if you're able to deny your opponent from collecting. Yes, the combat still triggers, but sometimes, that's all they have.
Yeah. And, this line here, for example, the Horsemaster is going to have a great trigger here, clearing a 2/4, so making sure the Brigand stays alive. It does allow Moonfasa to collect a Faeria with the Mace Man, but it does make it much more... I mean, it's just a clean trade now, whereas the Charger could have played one Soul Drain and cleared it in one hit, or just used a Soul Drain and then collected with the Charger. So I like he went for the Charger here, it's a bigger threat, and the Mace Man trade-off is going to be inevitable.
Yeah, and again, it's going to give that combat Faeria to S of Dawn here. He's going to be able to combo that into the Underground Boss, into more of these creatures onto the board, and Moonfasa kind of unfortunate there to not pick up other creatures. Looks like he's going to still go for the Soul Drain and get the Fanatic down, but Fanatic always better when you can use its gift to outmaneuver your opponent instead of just using it on itself.
Yeah, just kind of being used as a harvester here, which is kind of sad against the red combat deck. Cypher's Wrath, Flame Burst, two very clean answers to this double collector, but Underground Boss is also going to prove to be a problem as well if he decides to +1 into Gift of Steel. So now S of Dawn really needs to figure out what is the worst thing that can happen. It's going to be Choking Sands. So you could actually preemptively work around that and go for Underground Boss into Gift of Steel, but you do open up a bit of land development into the wells from the Yellow Tempo player.
Yeah, it's always a debate of what you play around in those situations. Moonfasa currently not with enough to go for something like a Last Nightmare, so you are probably more leaning towards playing that Gift of Steel because you know that the removal won't come out that way, but Choking Sands is still an option. So it's tough for S of Dawn there. He could switch sides if he wants to and start developing onto the right, get the boss down that way, but I just don't see really a better position than going for the Underground Boss with the Gift of Steel when you know that removal isn't available from your opponent.
And I'm pretty sure in this situation, S of Dawn was figuring out, right, if I go for Gift of Steel here, it's much more likely that Choking Sands is going to be an answer if I don't play Gift of Steel, rather than Last Nightmare, where he needs another Faeria and another land. So he would have to have a mobility trick to collect an extra Faeria, which would be Flashwind, which was picked up, to be fair, and another Desert. So I like this line, just playing very safe, and now this boss can be a real menace with that Horsemaster in hand.
Yeah, and Moonfasa realizing that if that movement is there from S of Dawn, he's in big trouble. So going for using that Flash when getting the control onto the far side of the board, I actually would not be surprised to see that Horsemaster come down from S of Dawn here and get an aggressive mountain in behind Moonfasa's top left well. It gives you the Axe Grinder position later, even just to follow up with this next Underground Boss, gives you that position later as well. So it is a line that he could go for, or he could just play slower and develop into the left side wells here.
I love how Moonfasa was like, yeah, that's a big Underground Boss. I'm getting out of dodge here. The Flashwind just all the way to the other side of the board. Very good play, though. He played around that Horsemaster perfectly. So good presence of mind there from Moonfasa, knowing what kind of options his red control has and respecting them. But like I said, we're probably going to see this Horsemaster anyway get into an aggressive position, has potential orb damage next turn, could set up an Axe Grinder Mountain, which I really like. I really like that line. But S of Dawn hesitating a little bit, going for the neutrals instead.
Yeah, even still could go for the same Horsemaster line, and going for the prairies here means the Horsemaster then gets into a better collection position. It just means that wherever you place your prairie, it eventually will get overridden by a mountain, but it does put your Horsemaster in a better position here.
Soul Drain, another clean answer to that Horsemaster collecting on the bottom there. I guess this was, I guess he wanted to make sure Horsemaster could collect, which is totally reasonable here. Happy to develop another mountain in the future if need be. But Moonfasa has great options here. He has a Soul Drain. He could use the Soul Drain Wind Soldier. Well, that's not so great. Soul Drain Wind Soldier Fanatic into the boss is so good for S of Dawn. It just refunds so much Faeria.
Yeah, definitely. Not a line that you're looking. You're definitely looking for a Last Nightmare there. Unfortunately, still doesn't have the deserts to play it, but giving your opponent this 4 extra Faeria, although it still is probably worth it because S of Dawn is going to be able to hit the orb next turn. He's going to be able to combo that into the extra Faeria anyway. You have to. It's so tough here because you still want that Manta Rider down as well, but he's just one desert off because of the way he's been forced to play in these situations.
I can imagine S of Dawn is incredibly happy with that Choking Sands because now this underground boss can be played uncontested by removal in hand. Can play that aggressive mountain now on the well. Could even go for a mountain on the orb because of the combat ability triggering and gain additional Faeria. And now Moonfasa doesn't have a clean answer to this. One alternative could be to play the Manta Rider in front of the underground boss, but Cypher's Wrath going to line up perfectly if he goes for that.
Yeah, it looks like he is going to just switch, put the Manta Rider over in a safer position. Flame Burst, unbelievable pickup there from S of Dawn. That's going to allow him to clear that Manta Rider and completely lock Moonfasa out of the game.
Yeah, Flame Burst, Cypher's Wrath, gain that additional Faeria as well from the underground boss. This might just be a surrender here. I'm not sure. Moonfasa might just see what he draws, but looking incredibly bleak right now.
The only situation there was if you draw another Choking Sand, you can still +1 Faeria to it. So your opponent has just used all of their cards. Depends on what their draws are, if you can then stabilize the game. But Fnatic picked up as well. I'm actually interested in the Outland Ranger being in this deck. Yellow Tempo has featured Outland Ranger before, but recently, at least, it seems like people have switched to preferring the Kaleem's Training in this style of deck over Outland Ranger. It still gives you that event synergy, still gives you +1 attack, but the extra mobility and then being able to use like the flying and the charge onto things like a Shaitan Demon it seemed to me to be more favored than having the Outland Ranger of the extra creature. Moonfasa is still not picking anything up. Is there lethal here? No Gift of Steel found. Would have been the lethal there, but this Axe Grinder, again, going to be another big creature that Moonfasa just can't deal with.
That looks like the nail in the coffin to me with all these combat creatures. No answers to them. There we have it. First game going over to S of Dawn. Very, very clean there for the red combat control. And yeah, it's going to be tough to come back from that situation as a yellow tempo deck. And it really comes down to that early Horsemaster being able to kind of disrupt yellow tempo's flow. And then the underground boss being very powerful pickup going forward. But the second Choking Sand... or potentially the first Choking Sands being very, very disruptive on that Horsemaster, but not being able to answer the underground boss.
Yeah, S of Dawn just made the right plays with the Gift of Steels to play around the Choking Sands at every opportunity, and to play in situations where Moonfasa wasn't going to be able to have Last Nightmare or any clear onto it. So was really well played with, picking the better option every single time. So Moonfasa bringing out a green here against the red has been statistically favored as the combat or as the counter here to red, just because green continues to get bigger and bigger and red can't deal with those big creatures. Verdant Force is really nice, and then Moonfasa probably will be able to combo that into a Grove Keeper to get the right early clears. Elderwood Embrace is going to be difficult for S of Dawn to clear whatever that creature is as the survivor.
I think one thing that red combat can do against any kind of mono green, if the buffs don't line up or the buffs don't come in the right times, Bomb Slingers can actually be a big problem because they can represent up to 8 damage, and that can be enough to give red enough breathing room to apply the pressure they need. But also, the Gift of Steel on the underground boss does make quite a bulky creature in itself, which will refund Faeria. So if you can take care of a heavily invested, say, Verdant Force, for example, your opponent may not have a way to come back and develop additional defenses if there's no Feed the Forest combo.
Yeah, and Bombslinger is one that sometimes is run, sometimes isn't. It'll also be kind of dependent if Moonfoss is running something like Emperor's Command in his deck, because then he'll be able to deal with those very easily. We do see S of Dawn going the opposite way here, which is generally more the way you would want to play against this deck. You want to be able to use this AoE from afar and then get the Horsemasters in the right position, but Moonfossa now set up for what should be a pretty good Grove Caller line.
Yeah, Grove Caller's pretty clean here. Gonna take care of the Ground Shaker. I would even preemptively Elderwood as well to play around a second Ground Shaker, so if S of Dawn does want to clear what's left of the Version Force, it's going to take additional cards. And there's also a Runin as well, which can start causing some trouble. And I kind of feel that as a mono-green player, you probably just want to match the side that the red control player is going down, because you can challenge their creatures very easily and just overpower them and overwhelm them, rather than kind of trying to race them, where you give red control that breathing room to set up how they want.
It looks like this is actually a pretty difficult decision for Moonfossa here of whether you go for Runin to reinforce the Verdurant Force, or if you go for the Elderwood Embrace to buff it back up. Embrace does take it to 5. Actually going to go for a Feed the Forest.
I don't really like Feed there just yet. I mean, I guess you do get to set up Runin, but you're not setting up Runin in a position where it's going to influence the board state. It's kind of sat on its own collecting, which is one of the weaker uses of Runin. You know, you want her to die, you want to replay her, and you want her to keep dying. So you get these really powerful Runins, but on this side, it's not really doing much.
Yeah, it will be a tanky enough collector. Just the 4/4 is difficult for red to deal with unless they get something like Ground Shaker, Flame Burst, Ground Shaker, maybe Firestorm as another AoE, but S of Dawn playing this very slow could have gone for +1 Faeria, Ground Shaker, Cypher's Wrath, and killed the Verdurant Force, but instead choosing to play for the Underground Boss, continuing to reduce the life of the Verdurant here, and then he's going to combo either a big AoE or just a single Cypher's Wrath next turn.
Yeah, I really like this line, because it's very conservative. It's just saying, right, I'm happy to throw my boss under the Verdurant Force here at getting a refund. So it's just a free Faeria 3/5, which is going to line up that Cypher's Wrath. So it's going to be a 5 Faeria 2-card investment on the Verdurant Force. But that's pretty nice, I think, for S. If you can get that value, you know, you should definitely go for it.
Yeah, another Feed the Forest picked up was really nice for Moonfossa. They're able to get it onto Runin, and now Runin being a 6/6 will contest anything that S of Dawn plays, and that is really the big snowball point.
Interesting.
Runin sitting at 4/4 does die easily to some of these underground cards, maybe the Cypher or Ground Shaker, and you can start to snowball that way, but
I like this a lot. This is basically saying, no, I'm not going to play into your plan, S of Dawn. I'm just going to hit you for 9. Let's see if you can answer this big boy Verdurant Force at the bottom. There is a Bomb Slinger being picked up, which is very nice. Going to be able to Bomb Slinger Cypher's Wrath. Get some value out of this boss as well. So while this play was quite nice, S of Dawn does have some good counter lines.
I actually don't mind not going for the Bomb Slinger here. Ground Shaker and that double Cypher's Wrath, like I was talking about in the previous turn, I think is a little better in this situation. Kills off the Verdurant Force, kills off Wood Elemental, and you're still left with these big creatures.
I think one thing to consider is you do know there is a 6/6 Runin in hand, so what's the plan here? Do you race, play an aggressive Ground Shaker in the top right hand, or do you go for a central Ground Shaker in front of you, or preemptively targeting that Runin when it comes down, if it comes down in an aggressive position?
And S of Dawn is going to more play for the win, going for the aggressive line rather than playing into the defensive. It's a situation where Moonfossa needs... Runin's Guidance is a great pickup because you have the heal now to possibly win that race. He just needed that something else, whether it's a buff to try to win the race or the heal here.
Let's see if he initiates it. With the heal, it's definitely a consideration. Could go for Virgin Force instead. +1 Virgin Force is also an option. Does it line up better for lethal? I guess it does, because double buff is lethal then with Virgin Force, whereas double buff isn't lethal with Runin's Runin. So yeah, I like Virgin Force here.
Yeah, that is what he's going to go for. S of Dawn will need maybe something like a Grim Guard if he's running one of those to get the defensive taunt, or maybe even a Gift of Steel if he goes for the draw here, just because that will accelerate. But this is now a situation where Moonfasa is just looking for that second buff.
I'm curious of what S does with his power wheel. I guess you just draw.
Yeah, I don't think you really need anything else in terms of going for the Faeria. There's no good Bomb Slinger line. Cypher's not going to do anything really impactful. The draw seems better, and then I'm actually wondering on Flame Bursting the Grove Color here, just to ensure that your opponent has to +1 Faeria depending on what they draw. They can't actually draw for something like Runin's Guidance, Elderwood Embrace. You're very restricted to, I think, just Runin's Guidance off of the second draw.
I think that's actually a really smart line. Just eliminating more outs for your opponent. Like, S is going to know that Elderwood Runin is going to be lethal. If you can limit the chances of that happening, buy yourself a turn. This could actually be a lethal line moving forward for S into the following turn. He may just Cypher aggressively and allow him to take that extra Faeria. Yeah, it looks like the Cypher's coming down instead. So just trying to finish off his opponent next turn. So if Runin's Guidance is used as a heal, there's a Flame Burst backing that up as well. So this is S going all in on winning next turn.
Yeah, and this does set up the line where Moonfasa can draw for the second buff here. Doesn't hit it on the natural draw for the turn. The second one is a Crystal Flower that will not be enough. It's still going to be 8 damage, and again, that Flame Burst in hand, like you were saying. There's not enough Faeria to go for the Guidance and the Crystal Flower there, so that's going to be game to S of Dawn. I don't see any way that Moonfasa gets out of this now.
And the Flower nerf, making an impact in this match right now. Before, Crystal Flower was a 3 Faeria structure, got nerfed into a 4 Faeria structure to make it a bit more reasonable, and this is a perfect situation showcasing how that nerf is influencing a match. Not able to make 2 lines, which would at least buy some time. So S of Dawn taking a 2-0 lead over Moonfasa.
Yeah, I think that was really well played by both players. S of Dawn playing that really slow, trying to get the right clears at the right time, and then Moonfasa made a really nice play to turn the aggression, and S of Dawn had the answer with the clear because he waited.
Yeah, it's tough for Moonfasa. He's going up against a very experienced player, someone who's ran the gauntlet, the monthly cup many a times and come out a champion at the end. So it's a long, steep climb to a victory in this series right now. Combat Control is still, making waves in this series, and now it's going to be a mirror match. See if Moonfasa can at least get a game on the board and get his other decks into play.
Yeah, and it really plays into the mental game, I think, when you lose what you think is the counter. In that situation, when you're playing green against this red combat, you're playing that because you're expecting to win, coming off of that game 1 loss, and losing when you've picked the counter feels really bad. You never want to go into the third game in this type of a way. So I think that is a big thing that Moonfasa will have to fight past in this series as well.
Yeah, it's going to be tough, and I feel that S definitely has the stronger start here. The Axe Grinder on turn 1 is going to allow a turn 2 collection, and then going to demand removal from your opponent early on, so it might not line up very well with an underground boss for Moonfasa, because he only has to set up a collector and use removal, so this Axe Grinder should actually get a lot of value.
Yeah, Moonfasa does have a pretty good hand in the mirror match. Going for the underground boss and then Gift of Steel onto it is really strong in the early game because Red like we talked about in some of the previous matches, doesn't have those big creature removal. So having, this early 6/8 creature, if he goes for the Gift of Steel as well,
is going to be impactful.
Very difficult. Yeah.
So what's the answer here? That's the question. I mean, he could go for Brigand Gift. I think that's not too bad. You're forcing at least 5 damage going onto this boss if there's not another Gift of Steel from Moonfacer. You can maybe line up Grandshaker Ciphers in the future.
Yeah, Underground Gift doesn't look too bad. It still dies to the boss, which is really not what you want in that situation, especially with another Gift of Steel. You do get really punished. It might be a situation where you just kind of play slow, but no, going for the well or going for the mountain in between the wells means it's going to be either the Ground Shaker or Brigand plus Gift of Steel, and that is what we see S of Dawn go for. So this is going to set up that Cypher's Wrath on an upcoming turn.
Yeah, I think this is probably the better line. You invest less into the board here. You don't get that refund, but the Grand Shaker sets up the Cypher's Wrath. I mean, he could have been a bit... If you want to be less transparent, I feel there is some value going for Underground Gift because you don't reveal that you have Grand Shaker Ciphers to finish it off. And if it was to be removed by combat, S of Dawn would have had enough Faeria to go for that Grand Shaker Ciphers on the follow-up turn, as long as the Axe Grinder collected and Flameburst picked up here by Moonfacer, so he's going to have an answer to this Axe Grinder and stop that collection. So a nice play from S with the Grand Shaker line instead of the boss Brigand line, because it wouldn't have worked out.
Yeah, it ends up being really nice there. Really nice pickup for Moonfacer as well, that he's able to clear the Axe Grinder and then develop his own, because that's going to be... S of Dawn's follow-up is that Cypher's Wrath and possibly the Brigand here, so then you get your own creature set up against that, rather than something like another Gift of Steel, which is just a dead card in hand for Moonfacer at this stage.
Brigand's not bad here. I guess you could play it on your orb, and then it can collect. If it lives another turn, you could potentially set up a Horsemaster play into Gift of Steel once you've collected a bit of Faeria. So it does open up some potential lines going forward with what's in hand. But right now, Moonfacer feels like he's in the driver's seat. He has this Axe Grinder going into double collection, and as it stands, S of Dawn doesn't have an answer to it.
Yeah, I think I would rather see maybe another land developed in front of S of Dawn's own orb there to set up a better Horsemaster line, but I think in that situation he's just thinking, I have to ensure that this Underground Brigand survives, so I need the extra Faeria for possibly a Horsemaster Gift of Steel play next turn, and going for that rather than developing another land before he needs to.
It might be too late if S of Dawn doesn't preemptively buff this Brigand with Grandshaker Ciphers in hand. That is a clean answer on the follow-up turn for Moon to deal with that Brigand. We do see the Axe Grinder moving back. Very respectful of potential Bomb Slingers.
Yeah, going for playing around the Bomb Slinger there and moving back so that it plays around the Horsemaster as well. Again, we see that Flame Burst picked up in exactly the same way Moonfacer cleared just a couple turns ago. S of Dawn is able to get the same clear.
Yeah, and line up that Gift of Steel as well. So very clean there. We saw a +1 Faeria coming from S of Dawn last turn. +1 Faeria going into this turn, setting up that Flame Burst clear and empowering this Brigand, stopping that Grandshaker Cipher. So very, very well played from S of Dawn there.
Yeah, Moonfacer now has a bit of a difficult decision with the Groundshaker here, and it's something that you don't always consider against red combat. Something that you generally consider against something like a yellow tempo deck is this Horsemaster is going, or this Brigand has a Horsemaster line to collect off of the top well, and that would possibly open up Horsemaster Groundshaker. I guess there wouldn't be quite enough area for that, because you still have to develop the land. So really nicely plays around the land, but it's something that you kind of consider, I need to body block the collection off that well versus I need to get the Groundshaker in between the double collection spot.
I think he's actually going to pass on the central land there. I like this little O you can make in the middle when you're contesting it, because it forces your opponent to use the power wheel as a land resource rather than gain additional Faeria or draw additional cards to find answers. And this little double neutral on the curve here is to protect his Brigand from bomb slingers. You know, he's respecting bomb slingers. He's respecting aggressive mountains and aggressive follow-ups, because right now Moonfasa is definitely the one in control of this match.
Yeah, and just playing that Axe Grinder to stop the double collection from the Ground Shaker here. Cypher's a really nice pickup from Moonfasa because it can be very impactful throughout a red combat versus red combat matchup. It's just that Bomb Slinger looks like it lines up very nicely into the Axe Grinder here, unless you're thinking to play around Ground Shaker. It's so interesting in these type of matches where you have so many different options that you're considering what you have to play around the most from your opponent.
I think I prefer +1 Ground Shaker and just hit the 4-3 with the other Ground Shaker. I feel the first Ground Shaker, which is currently active on board, has kind of done its job. It's collected a Faeria. It's still contesting the center in between the wells. And you could have just, or a Cypher, I think Cypher's just fine. Cypher a Ground Shaker, follow up, stop any double collection lines with Horsemaster, and just put some really bulky creatures down.
Oh, double Horsemaster is not what you want to see in this situation, unfortunately, for S of Dawn there.
If he takes a draw, he cannot make a Horsemaster line. There's a Flame Burst, but now you have to consider, do you need to save the Flame Burst for the Cypher? Because currently there is no answer in hand to it with the Brigand. So next turn, you could follow up with Horsemaster into Flame Burst, but now you have to be thinking, what about my opponent's Horsemaster? What if he Horsemasters next turn, and then the Flame Burst is going to be much more awkward. So it's interesting. You know, it's a very difficult position for... I like this. So I like this. S is respecting Horsemaster himself, and he's saying, I'm going to preemptively Flame Burst this, so if you do want to Horsemaster me, Cypher is going to get taken out.
Yeah, really nice play there. Sometimes we see players go for this, even with something like a Cypher's Wrath, where usually you would use that to kill the creature to get that burn damage, but in certain situations against Cypher, you have to use it first to ensure that it doesn't start snowballing. So going for that preemptive is basically just a necessity to ensure that Cypher doesn't get snowballing here. But another great pickup from Moonfasa, finding the Flame Burst, going to be able to kill off the Brigand here, and still, you know, weak creatures on board, but S of Dawn doesn't have the ability to go for that Firestorm. One Fairy off, one Mountain off, but doesn't have the ability to get any creatures that are going to stick to the board at this stage of the game.
Yeah, it's kind of looking like Moonfasa's game here. I think S will play it out, especially with that Firestorm in hand. He'll try and line up a Firestorm next turn. If a greedy Axe Grinder or Brigand came down, it would be a good opportunity to get some value out of it. I actually think Moonfasa's in a position now where he plays Grimguard to play around Firestorm, but that's it. I wouldn't play any other creature, or maybe you don't play any creatures at all. But then again, if S was to pick up, oh no, he wouldn't be able to. He won't be able to get initiative back because he won't have enough Faeria. So yeah, I think just either passing or playing Grimguard's fine here.
Yeah, just something to survive onto the board. Grimguard does play into Cypher's Wrath would be a clear need to step Cypher up instead of allowing that possible Bomb Slinger line.
I really don't like Brigand here. You're playing in. I think you're giving S opportunities to make a comeback. It was looking heavily in Moonfasa's favor, but I feel that Brigand's very greedy, and I feel that Moonfasa is just trying to push Cypher and Ground Shaker into a position where he can push damage, but like I said, I don't like it, just because Firestorm gets more value now. S of Dawn was in a losing position, but now he could make a potential comeback.
Yeah, and there it is. Still initiative to Moonfasa. He's going to be able to get down the next creature onto the board. But this is S of Dawn in a position where he's, at least for now, stabilized. Moonfasa working with 5 Faeria. S of Dawn next turn is going to have 5 Faeria. So they're exactly the same. It's just Moonfasa with that first move advantage.
And the problem Moonfasa has now is if he plays into the wells, he opens up an aggressive line for S, but if he plays defensively, he opens up a collection line for S. So being having the initiative in this situation was actually a lot worse for Moonfasa. I think he would much rather play reactively. So very interesting there that initiative became a problem more than an asset.
Yeah, and that's the way that this deck kind of runs sometimes. You have your underground creatures, which are your proactive plays, but a lot of things are reactive. You don't want to play a ground shaker on an empty board there. Bomb Slinger is a dead card if your opponent doesn't have any creatures. So some of the things in Moonfoss's hand just don't really have any impact unless he's playing them second. S of Dawn right now just unfortunately getting all of the Horse Masters with nothing on board to play to give that effect.
What would you like here? I think playing a Horsemaster on its own is just not good enough. It's not going to cut it against a mono red deck, but Grimguard aggressively could definitely be an out for S to win this match. I think if you're going to win this game from as S now, you just have to play aggressively and kind of cross your fingers and hope that you can get that win.
Yeah, a lot of resources have been used by both players, getting down to one Flame Burst left in the deck versus what the Horsemasters represent in life against this Grimguard. So Grimguard definitely seems like the better play there.
And Bombslinger Cypher's Wrath is going to line up perfectly to clear this Grimguard. He can play a defensive mountain in front of his orb to stop any potential creatures or block potential creatures that are coming from that well spot from S, and going to clear the Grimguard and starving him of Faeria.
It's possibly a position where you can be greedy and just go for like a ground shaker or the underground boss in front of the Grimguard, but there's just really no reason to in this situation. You have the clear so that you can deny your opponent even having that Gift of Steel as a possibility, and this again puts Moonfossa into this better and better position where he's going to be able to, if S of Dawn plays nothing, the Bomb Slinger will collect off of the well there, and the Axe Grinder still double collecting just uncontested on the left side.
And double collection can come back out now for Moonfossa with the Axe Grinder. Play a Ground Shaker to clear out the rest of that boss now. But where do you play the Ground Shaker? There's no aggressive land here. The way S has maneuvered his neutrals, he's blocked up any kind of land spot where a creature can come down and then push orb damage on the following turn. So a bit awkward here. Do you develop another mountain somewhere?
I think you have to develop a mountain on that most aggressive prairie spot. That it's going to be 2 turns away from your opponent, but at least that combos into next turn. You're maybe able to develop a mountain directly in front of the orb and play an underground boss or the Grimguard there and have another creature. This just seems like a situation where if you play that aggressive line, even if your opponent follows up with another creature that's going to hit your orb next turn, you have way more damage coming to the orb on the following turn, that you're already ahead in the race, so you just continue to accelerate.
I think an issue that S has encountered now is where he placed his last mountain. If he had placed it in front of his orb, he'd be in a situation now where he could drop Underground Boss down, and then it could uncontestedly hit the orb unless a taunt comes down. But now it doesn't matter what S plays on the top right-hand corner. Moonfast is always going to have enough Faeria to place something in front of it. And this Ground Shaker is slowly going to move towards that orb, but as long as Moonfassa can keep playing creatures in front of that mountain, I can't see him losing this game.
Yeah, it's really nice to get that position set up with the way the lands have worked. Of course, you generally want to get the inside well position, not only for Axe Grinders, but just so that your other creatures collect and then can move towards hitting the orb. But that does open your opponent's land line up to exactly the way that we've seen here, where he has that mountain to block. So any creature will be able to body block there. And S of Dawn really letting the timer run down. Not sure if he's just playing it that way to try to make his opponent think that he has more options than he actually has, but it's interesting that that's the way he went for there.
And you can see, I think S has identified the issue with that mountain himself, because if you look at the position the Underground Boss went into, it's in a position where it can hit the orb next turn, and the Moonfassa has to develop 2 creatures to stop that. Now he does have the Grimguard, it's going to hold the line, but if he didn't have the Grimguard, S of Dawn would have a great opportunity to push some damage and actually get ahead in the race with this Ground Shaker, because Ground Shaker still has another turn before it can hit the orb.
Yeah, the Gift of Steel now picked up for S of Dawn is really nice because that puts him on a 3-turn clock to win the game, essentially. Moonfasa in a position where he has to now decide, do I play that defensive creature, the Grim Guard or the Underground Boss, to contest S of Dawn's, or do I play it aggressive and go for possibly winning the game next turn?
Yeah, it's interesting. I kind of like playing aggressively here, because you know S is going to gain Faeria regardless. If you play the Grim Guard, S is going to be able to gain additional Faeria from the combat off that anyway. So you could just go aggressive mountain into your own Underground Boss, and then try and win the race in the next 2 turns.
Yeah, and that is the line that he's going to go for. So he's got with 11 with the Gift of Steel in hand. If he picks up another Gift of Steel, that will be the 14 for lethal. I think Moonfasa is currently at 1 Flame Burst left, unless I miscounted throughout the course of the game. But S of Dawn committing to this all in. He just Gift of Steel, go for the orb. Could even +1 and play like the Brigand. That's going to combo into more Faeria next turn for maybe a Flame Burst of his own or another Gift of Steel. So it's a situation now where it is, again, on the top decks.
But I feel Moonfasa is definitely ahead just because of resource management. He has that Axe Grinder double collecting. He has the flexibility of being able to draw a card if he likes. Grimguard can come down on a mountain in the center of his orb, just make things awkward, buy some time. I guess Grimguard is probably the better line here. You could even gift it to make it even more awkward, because this boss and this Ground Shaker should be able to finish off S of Dawn on their own, especially if you're still drawn into Flame Burst and other Gift of Steels.
I like going for the draw because you're playing for your outs. You can draw a Gift of Steel, you can draw a Flame Burst as possible lethals this turn. If those don't pan out, you can Grimguard on the mountain that already exists, and that forces your opponent to make the lands, rather than Grimguard being in a position where something like Gift of Steel could come down on the Brigand and clear the Grimguard, but looks like he should preemptively Gift of Steel the Grimguard here then, going for more of the defensive line like you suggested.
Yeah, I actually like your line as well. I think it definitely has some merits, because like you said, they're gonna have to shimmy across anyway if they both want to push damage. But I think maybe Moonfasa is afraid of something crazy, like, I don't know, triple Flame Burst? I'm not sure. But either way, I feel that Moonfasa navigated his way around that matchup very well. The triple Horsemaster draw was kind of clunky. Horsemaster is primarily used, a bit like we were talking to Fnatic earlier. You want to get value out of its gift. And if you draw 3 of them against red, they're going to get Cypher's Wrath. That's how it's going to happen. So, very unfortunate there for S with his draws. But Moonfasa, he takes a win now. And now he has one of the best decks in the game to be able to take the rest of the series.
Yeah, it's got to be a big confidence booster there when you win the mirror match, just because it can be very draw dependent. Obviously, there are still ways that you can outplay your opponent, but sometimes you just don't get the cards in the right order. And that one, Moonfasa taking the mirror match, going to be a big confidence booster going into this match, but probably knows that he's going to have to face something with the green and net exactly the same way that he went for the counter in game 2.
Yeah, mono green could be the matchup here. We'll see how S plays this matchup compared to how Moonfasa did. Moonfasa went down the opposite side, and in the end it kind of hurt him more than anything. I think you can play a more control style when you're playing against red, because you will just overpower their creatures eventually. It's a lake.
We actually see it. Lake to start from S of Dawn, really showing right away his deck is going to be that green-blue that we saw so much in the last monthly cup. I was going to say there, actually, Axe Grinder start from Moonfasa is really nice with that Horsemaster, because Wood Elemental has been nerfed down to a 2/4. So now Axe Grinder picks up a lot of value of clearing that creature, and Moonfasa is going to play into the same side. Not sure if he's reading into the fact that it's probably more likely a green-blue than just a mono-blue here, even just seeing that first lake.
But you were saying earlier, mono blue is not really doing much in the meta right now. Blue jump is just a shadow of its former self. well, Gabrians and the Sevens build hasn't been around for a long time, and Dreamweaver, it does have viable builds, but they're not at the top of the tier list, unfortunately. So it's more than likely, if you see a lake come down, and then a forest, it's going to be some blue-green ramp variant.
Yeah, and all of the elementals you could ask for in the opening draws here from S of Dawn, they're really nicely going to be able to combo into those bigger land requirement cards, things like the Frog Tossers. Maybe if he's playing Sky Whales in here as a late condition. Now, we're probably not expecting to see Tree of Everlife at least as much as we did last monthly cup, just because it got the nerf as well, but could be something that's still considered in the deck.
Yeah, a Tree of Everlife, unfortunately, is just too slow for what you wait for. Like, you wait for a heal and 1 buff for 10 lands. It's a massive investment of time, but also resources, and doesn't quite live up to its former self, unfortunately. But I know Blue-Green Ram still has some great tools. Frog Tosser being picked up here. Wonderful piece of removal there that can potentially free for 1 in the correct circumstances. And then, like you said, Azura Sky Whale can be a very problematic card, especially when you have initiative, because it can just oppress your opponent with that swallow mechanic.
Yeah, Swallow's been a huge talking point, really, since it's been released. Just the fact of it just shuts your opponent out. If you're trading in the situation where it's like 1 creature for 1 creature, you swallow theirs, they now don't have that Faeria income, and especially in the case of Sky Whale, you have a big creature that they just don't have a way to deal with. So it's very interesting to see if that is a card that S of Dawn is playing in this deck. But next turn, we're going to see that Frog Tosser come down in probably a very impactful trade if Moonfasa follows up with the Horsemaster that we're probably expecting here.
Yeah, Horsemaster looks really nice for Moonfasa. You can set up Axe Grinder in an aggressive position. The Flame Burst clears out the Water Elemental cleanly, taking care of that creature that was challenging the Axe Grinder, but now this has just given an opportunity for a very strong Frog Tosser, which will live and then potentially trade. And you know, that's where these Frog Tossers become free for ones, especially if you start lining up cards like Aurora on that little frog that's running around.
Yeah, and the Frog Tosser will survive as if he chooses to kill off the Horsemaster, it'll survive as a 4/1. So that'll be really nice to trade right into the Axe Grinder as the follow-up here. So S of Dawn in a really nice position, probably going to be able to get that Wood Elemental down as well, and then he's going to have an uncontested double collector on the left.
It's going to be very hard for Moonfasa to get resources over to the left-hand side to stop a Wood Elemental collecting. Bomb Slinger, we've already seen in hand, needs to be in range. It needs to be adjacent on a mountain, unlike Firebomb. But you could line up, say, Ground Shaker Flame Burst, but when you're Ground Shaker Flame Burst in the other side of the board, they're just going to play another guy, and you're not going to be able to get it again. So S of Dawn, like you said, in a very, very comfortable position. That's a very unfortunate frog as well.
Yeah, if the frog was on the other side there, it would be much better, just because the boss wouldn't be able to just step back and kill that easily. I'm kind of surprised that S of Dawn went for the body block there with the 4/1 instead of putting it on the mountain the forest just to the left of his orb, because he could have played it in that more protected position to ensure that it kills the Axe Grinder, instead of in this position where if Moonfasa wanted to, he could kill it with the boss instead.
I really like the boss going into the 2/2 here, then playing a mountain next to that Frog Tosser, using the Bomb Slinger is not great value, but it does allow you to push 4 damage, get Faeria value off the Frog, and set up an additional 4 attacker, go in for the orb next turn, and you're kind of lining up a lot of pressure, and all that's in hand now is 1 card and 2 Wood Elementals out of reach. So I feel like the Bomb Slinger is absolutely perfect here.
You could actually do it in either way, depending on what you feel like going for. You can step up with the boss and use the Bomb Slinger to clear off the frog in that top right corner. Then you have the 4/1 surviving up there instead. I don't know which I like better, because it ends up with either an aggressive 3/1 or a more defensive 3/1, and that aggressive 4/1 instead.
Actually, I think I like this better because you gain additional Faeria from the boss hitting the orb, but also, if another Frog Tosser was to come down, its only good target is the underground boss, and that frog will spawn in range of the Axe Grinder. So I actually like this a lot for Moonfasa.
And there is that Frog Tosser, just as you mention it. Unfortunately, SF Dawn doesn't have enough to Frog Tosser and Shifting Octopus here. It would be a really big tempo swing. But if he does go for that Frog Tosser, its only line is to kill the boss, and that puts the Frog, again, in a pretty bad position.
I guess if he plays the Frog Tosser next to the Axe Grinder, it's not too bad. But then the Axe Grinder can still get value. It can still step up and take care of the frog, and then if you pick up a Ground Shaker or a Cypher's Wrath, that Frog Tosser gets answered pretty easily. So it doesn't line up perfectly, but it still demands your opponent to have some outs to make kind of a very clean, efficient clear on the bottom right-hand side of the board.
The Gift of Steel picked up really just in time. If SF Dawn hadn't cleared there and that Gift of Steel was picked up, it would have been really a lot of damage pushed with the Underground Boss there. The draw is actually kind of interesting there because Moonfasa could have gone for clearing the frog, really the frog or the Frog Tosser here, and +1 into Underground Boss Gift of Steel.
Yeah, that would have been quite nice actually. And I think an issue here potentially as well, if you go for the draw, you could also taken a mountain in front of the orb and played a boss just right in front, and then cleared the 2/2 and maybe move the Bomb Slinger down. And then the 4/1 will take care of the Axe Grinder, or it would demand something like an Aurora in order to take care of the boss before it gained value. So the boss would have made a massive threat. But I also like the line that you suggested, the +1. That would have been very nice. Just putting a 6/8 down and saying, I'm outside of Aurora's range, what are you going to do?
Yeah, and the big thing there is you don't know if you're playing into something like a Frogify, just because this is a deck that runs up to 3 lakes just naturally. It's something that I don't think is really played in the deck that much, but it's something that somebody could tech in as an out in certain situations.
I kind of feel like SF Dawn is getting into his groove now, and it's going to be very hard for the combat player to stop it. You know, he has a double collector on the left-hand side, which is completely uncontested, which we mentioned earlier. Elderwood Embrace picked up. This is a card I'm starting to see in blue-green ramp a lot more. It was a card that was ignored before, because the Tree of Everlife kind of carried you when it came to power-ups. But now that the blue-green needs to be more proactive because they don't have that card that can protect their orb, Elderwood Embrace is always a good answer because it gives you 4 life. It can empower Frog Toss up to a 6 attack, which can clear Ground Shakers, for example. So we're looking very nice here.
Yeah, it does look really good. Was wondering what SF Dawn was going to go for with the Power Wheel, because he had all of the options still. Aurora and that Elderwood Embrace was a possibility, but it looks like he's going to go Aurora and then probably Shifting Octopus just because he's gone for the extra Faeria here.
Yeah, Aurora's definitely coming down. It depends if he wants to even play the Octopus. I think he has time. He's not under a lot of pressure, especially if he decides to clear the Axe Grinder. But you're probably just going to clear the boss, stop the value. I wonder if you could Elderwood the Aurora if you're running Aurora's Creation and protect it.
Yeah, this looks like a situation where SF Dawn is going to switch to the aggressive. Probably, goes for the 5/3. I thought that would be a 3/5 to play around something like a Firestorm there. But get that aggressive creature with the jump down and start pushing the aggression at your opponent. Just, you have to at some point switch from this defensive mode to the aggression. So that is what he's going for here. But if Moonfasa goes for the draw and finds a Firestorm, I don't know how SF Dawn comes back from that situation.
Yeah, it's we're in a situation now where blue-green ramp can't just sit back and rely on one card to win at the game. It does need to be proactive now. It does need to apply pressure. I actually agree with you. I think the 3/5 was the safer line. I feel like you can just apply the same amount of pressure with a 3/5 and not be at the risk of Firestorm or Flame Burst. But now, the Flame Burst has 2 potential targets. The thing is, I'd love the Axe Grinder to be able to kill the Aurora and live, and then just Flame Burst the 3/6, and then you continue to streamline that pressure, but it's a little awkward, to be fair.
Yeah, I think you have to draw before, if that's the line that you're going for, drawing into a Firestorm. Now, maybe Moonfasa isn't playing them or isn't confident in getting that draw, but if that is what you're thinking, you have to draw first to see what it is, and then probably step over And
Oh.
I was going to say step over and kill the Frog Tosser, but he's just going to say, if you want to be aggressive, fine, I'm just going to win the race.
I like this. I like this line. This is nice. And we have the 4-1, you know, moving into a position where it can at least clear this 5-3 if it decides to jump over and try and push some damage. There's a Feed the Forest, so I assume this is going to come down on the Wood Elemental. Maybe move the 5-3 into a double collection, but that's a Leaping Fugu. Didn't see much of this in the previous monthly cup.
Yeah, and SF Dawn is on that 8 special land, so the Fugu will get its gift trigger, and it'll come down as a 5-6, which will be actually pretty difficult for the Combat Red to deal with no combat creatures on board. Still expecting Aurora to trade into the Axe Grinder here. It's just what SF Dawn goes for from there, because the Octopus does have jump, so he could bring it back defensively and just leave it over there as the double collector, but that just seemed like such a line that he was setting up of, okay, I have to swing to aggression here.
I guess you could double neutral and then Elderwood Embrace and then hit Orb, clear the 4-1 with Aurora, play the Leaping Fugu in the bottom right hand corner, and then that can take care of the last Axe Grinder, and you're still applying pressure outside of the range of that Bomb Slinger.
Yeah, and again, playing in a line where you force your opponent to make lands. Really nice land play by everyone that we've seen today.
Yep, Elderwood Embrace turned into a 7-7. Very threatening creature here. Might actually go for an aggro Leaping Fugu. No, gonna go for defensive. I like this.
Another Gift of Steel picked up means could put the opponent down to 2 by dealing 10 damage on this turn, but you leave that 7-7 up on the defensive end. This is really tough decision for Moonfasa on what he wants to play.
Goes to the draw, so double Gift of Steel isn't an option. Gift of Steel on the Bomb Slinger isn't an option to kill the 7-7, so the 7-7 will get another hit next turn. I think
double Gift is still an option. He can step the Bomb Slinger back onto his own top right well, and still have enough Faeria to double gift the Axe Grinder, and you're still playing into that Flame Burst out on the following turn.
I think you kind of have to go for it now. So yeah, I like this. This is a very, very smart line, just kind of going all in. Red has a lot of outs moving forward.
And the emote coming out from Moonfasa. You know, playing in a situation where he's still down 2-1, he thinks he has to make these, maybe this more risky play to go for the win right now rather than playing slow. And there's a Skywhale picked up as well, so SF Dawn is running those. You know, even just the fact of, like we were talking about, Lou hiding information in the first round, anybody, if SF Dawn advances here, Moonfasa is just, you know, showcasing the deck for anybody else who possibly comes up against him in the future rounds.
Yeah, I think Skywhale is a very good option for the blue-green ramps now. It's just a good finisher. And that's kind of what the role of the card was before the Tree of Everlife was first released. And then the Tree of Everlife got changed. And now it's, you know, the whales have come back and now they're in the role of finisher. But we'll see if Moonfasa draws that lethal. That's interesting. That's very interesting.
Oh my goodness, that is a big pickup, and SF Dawn having just used the swallow mechanic, Moonfasa may feel like that is his win condition. He can either draw for the Flame Burst or just simply play this Grimguard in a position where one of SF Dawn's creatures has to attack it, or he needs to draw something in order to move it out of the way so he can still hit the orb. I think you have to go for that as the more consistent play than drawing for one of your outs.
I agree. You play to the strength of your hand in these situations. Your hand offers you a lethal line. If you go for the draw, sure, you might draw the Flame Burst, but if you don't draw the Flame Burst, you are going to lose. So I like this. You know, just saying, Grimguard's going to win me this game, or I'm going to lose this game. It's all in on this Grimguard.
Very interesting there. A great pickup from Moonfasa that it does allow him this possible lethal find. And Moonfasa looked like just going to let the timer run down. The Bomb Slinger movement really doesn't matter. Leaping Fugu picked up won't do it. Now, SF Dawn does have the Faeria for a Crystal Flower if he draws one of those, but doesn't have enough for a Skywhale. So it's all on the next draw here.
Oh, it is a Skywhale, not enough to... Oh man, he picked up the Swallow mechanic, but the more expensive one, and that is very unfortunate because now Sky Whales don't collect Faeria. So if this was an old Sky Whale, it would have been able to double collect, and you played the Sky Whale to swallow it up. But yeah, that is going to be it. So it looks like Moonfast is staying in this series, tying up 2-2.
Yeah, very, very well played there to go for the win. It's something that we generally talk about throughout the course of monthly cups is whether you play for going for the win or playing not to lose in certain situations. And that one, it was Moonfasa making the aggressive line, the double Gift of Seal onto an Axe Grinder when it doesn't have that health buff from being a combat creature, and just saying, I need to try to win right now, and does pick up the win.
I like that double Gift of Steel line. That is one of the outs that Red has with Gift of Steel these days. They can just go, right, okay, I might not win on board anymore, but if I can just punch 10 damage to the orb, I have so many draws that win me the game that I'll just go for that line. And I've seen it in other combat decks as well, not necessarily just mono red. I've seen blue-red do it as well. S of Dawn actually created a deck with Superb Lizard, which was based around Gemshell, Tortoise, and the combat mechanic. And one of his tips was, when playing the deck, if you ever get an opportunity to Gift to steal something and hit their orb, go for it. Because you've got so many draws that deal damage that you're more likely to win a race.
Yeah, and that's Gift of Steel isn't useful if you don't have a creature. So even if it doesn't get that health buff, it's still it's still basically another Flame Burst in the deck if you're playing it onto another creature there. So we do see for the final game here, S of Dawn going with this yellow tempo style. It's something that has probably a pretty even matchup against the red. Sometimes you can get the Horse Masters in the right line, like we saw in game number 1, and you can get really good clears, but sometimes you can get the Chargers lined up in the right way to take out something like an Underground Boss before it gets a Gift of Steel. So it's kind of awkwardly oriented between these two decks, where the right clears can really swing the game in big ways.
And you can see S didn't preemptively buff his Outland Ranger in order to play around that Cypher's Wrath. He's basically said, Outland Ranger collected a Faeria for me, it's done its job, it's getting a piece of removal out of Moonfaster's hand, and he doesn't actually go for it, so he's going to actually preemptively buff. Now this is dangerous. Oh no, actually it's fine. He can't really get the Last Nightmare unless he was running Soul Pact, so he could Soul Pact into it. But we're going to see a Central Desert come down into the Manta Rider with that Flash Wind. In 2 turns, this Manta Rider could go for the orb.
Yeah, and even if it doesn't, just the fact that it's going to be flying, it can go off to the far side and basically S of Dawn, set up S of Dawn to out-collect Moonfasa just by it surviving on the left will be really nice as well. Moonfasa has a bit of a decision here where maybe you either Cypher's Wrath the Outland Ranger now, or you save up and go for a big Firestorm next turn and just continue to develop maybe in between the wells. It's just awkward of positioning properly around Flashwind's Fanatics, creatures that can move everything around to the right trades for the Yellow Tempo player.
Yeah, I mean, Cypher's Wrath's quite valuable here because the Manta and the Manta Rider is really relevant because it's a fly-in charge creature. It can collect a lot of Faeria. There is a Firestorm. So like you said, could line up the Firestorm. I actually like the conservative line. Just sit back, line up a massive Firestorm on the following turn, and then go for double Cypher's Wrath.
No, it looks like going to be more the aggressor in this situation. Now, this is going to line up a really good trade. Oh, is there enough for it? Yeah, the Flash Wind is going to allow enough of a collection here to get that Last Nightmare down, and that is a big pickup for S of Dawn.
The problem with the Cypher's Wrath on that turn is it didn't change the collection situation. S of Dawn was going to collect the same amount of Faeria regardless because the Charger was just sitting behind the Ground Shaker. The Ground Shaker, what am I saying? Ground Shaker. Outland Ranger, sorry. And yeah, it didn't make a difference. So I felt like he just sat back, had a Firestorm in hand. Could have cleared the entire board.
Yeah, that's a situation where you're playing into what looks so good for just that individual card, but the Firestorm, it would have killed the Manta Rider, and the Cypher's Wrath would have killed the 2/2, so it would have been really nice there, and now it's... I mean, do you go for the Flameburst Cypher's Wrath now? You have to stop this collection.
Yeah, now you're investing more resources into clearing this Manta Rider, whereas before it was like, oh man, it was like a buy one get one free deal at the market. You know, it was too good to pass up, and this actually gives S a lot of initiative now because he now has board control. He has the opportunity to continue developing creatures and applying pressure, whereas Moonfasa is now essentially top decking Faeria, getting base value Faeria, and has to play reactive in respect of these creatures that are coming to his orb.
Yeah, and usually you want to play your Charger around the mountains. You don't want to play into a Bomb Slinger, which is a very efficient clear onto the Charger. But in this situation, because Moonfasa had to go for those individual clears rather than the big AoE, he doesn't have any Faeria here. So that Bomb Slinger just isn't even a consideration. Moonfasa, again, in a position where do you wait for a Firestorm? Do you play more lands to have better Bomb Slinger positions, or go for the draw? And it's just everything looks awkward.
I think the worst thing that could happen to Moonfasa in the situation is a Flash Wind being picked up. If a Flash Wind was picked up, training Flash Wind, double Campfire would have been brutal. But even this is pretty bad now. The Charger represents plenty of damage going into the next turn with that one Campfire he knows about, but also the Demon as well lining up. I guess you just Bomb Slinger in front of your orb, clear the Demon, and just pray there's no Soul Drain.
Yeah, that's the big thing as well. Bomb Slinger is only one life, so Soul Drain picks it off very easily. I think you're probably leaning more towards clearing the Charger than the Demon, because the Charger probably represents more damage, and the Demon still does that self-burn damage where you can maybe play to your Grimguard, Flameburst being your outs, because the opponent has dealt that damage to themselves, but clears the Demon just to play around that Soul Drain being the only out. I guess Soul Drain, Wind Soldier being the only out for the opponent there.
I think a Campfire could have been a consideration there, just to keep the Charger alive. But I guess you could do it this way instead. So rather than keeping a 2/4 and a 2/1, you decide to go for the 3/5 that plays around Bomb Slinger and has a much higher chance of sticking around and pushing damage next turn.
Yeah, it plays around the Ground Shaker there of Moonfasa could have just +1 Ground Shaker, and that would have killed off the one remaining life of the first Charger as well. So just putting a bigger creature onto the board. And now with Cypher picked up, is that something that Moonfasa could consider here? Again, you play into Last Nightmare, just absolutely wrecking that creature, but it's so tough in the situation of, what do you go for? What can you do to get back in the game?
I think Boss is the best line here, because I think you should just expect anything that's played is going to die. At least if Boss dies, you get a refund in Faeria, which could line up Cypher on the next turn if this Charger decides to clear the Boss. Or could line up into a +1 Ground Shaker on the follow-up. So there are a lot more lines open to you if you play a Boss defensively, because if it does get answered, you get that refund.
And does go for the Cypher instead. And S of Dawn going for the draw there, I probably would think he's leaning more towards just clearing Cypher here rather than pushing orb damage, but he could step off to the far side, and that just means Cypher is going to end up in no man's land directly in front of the orb. So even if, or I should say even though Moonfasa does have the clear with Cypher, it's going to be in an awkward position of Cypher not doing anything on the follow-up.
I like going for the orb here. I think you just hold the line, drop an Imperial Guard down to soak the Cypher. How many event power-ups are left? Is it...
It's only got one event power-up currently, because it had the Campfire on the previous turn, and it had the Kaleem's Training on this turn. So it was only at one. That could have been a position where I think it would have been 10 damage could have been pushed that turn, and it would have survived to push even more damage on the next turn. But more conservative line coming out from S of Dawn here, and he might just be giving Moonfasa too much time.
I think so. I think pushing 10 damage that turn was incredibly important. And the hold the line, the Imperial Guard, would have been able to keep that Cypher from collecting. So collecting wouldn't have been an issue unless a Flame Burst came down on it. But then what? You know, the Charger would have been a 4/6 if you used the other Campfire. So it would have been out of Cypher's range anyway. So you could have set up Lethal. Lethal was definitely an option for the follow-up turn for S of Dawn if he had gone face.
Yeah, and awkward with the Ranger here as well, because, you know, going for that double Campfire, yes, it buffs it out of range of Cypher's Wrath Flame Burst, but I mean, Moonfaucet, if he had it in hand, could just +1 Bomb Slinger and would have been able to kill this Ranger right away. So it didn't really set up a safer position for S of Dawn here.
Yeah, it just made things a little awkward, I think, because you could play... I think +1 boss is really good here, once again, just because you gain a refund if it gets cleared, and then if you pick up, say, a Ground Shaker, or if you pick up a Cypher's Wrath, that's the Outland Ranger dealt with quite nicely. So it just... Yeah, I feel like S missed a wonderful opportunity to win the game very quickly. And it wasn't too much of a risk.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there is a line for Moonfaucet where he goes for, like, the Grimguard or the Underground Boss in this highlighted position where he's aiming to kill off the double collecting Outland Ranger, maybe soak some damage from that 5/4 Outland Ranger and just say, no, I have to win through clearing this double collection, or force the opponent with that Outland Ranger to step back. But Soul Drain just allows S of Dawn to still clear this. Another Windstorm Charger picked up is exactly what he needed. Needed another big creature to reinforce the 5/4 Outland Ranger here.
Just a nice clear off. You can step onto the defensive mountain, play another charge, like I said, a nice, very threatening creature. How does Moonfaucet react to this now? I could play a Grimguard on the well spot, but then the Outland Ranger moves back, hits it, and then the Charger is free to do what it wants.
Yeah, and nothing really good to go for with the Ground Shaker and Firestorm. Obviously really nice to clear off these 4 life creatures, but you're not going to be anywhere close to the amount of Faeria that you need to do that over the next 2 turns before you actually die to these 2 creatures. So I just don't know what I guess you go for the Grimguard just to be that passive, I need something on the board.
Could mountain in between the wells and then play Grimguard and just kind of hope a Firestorm Ground Shaker in the future could line something up. It's actually going to +1 Ground Shaker, which I think is probably a little bit better, just a bit more durable.
The Ground Shaker at least sets up a position where it should clear one of these creatures, and then the Flame Burst allows the clear onto the other one. It's just it's so awkward right now for Moonfaucet just because he doesn't have everything that he needs. S of Dawn has done a great job of continuing to clear every creature as soon as it's come down, and he still had that Outland Ranger in the collection spot, so he's been out collecting and more creature pressure at the same time.
Oh, big boy Colossus showing up for S of Dawn, so he now has the opportunity to develop a 7/7 and could dash it into the corner there in between the creatures, collect Faeria, and threatens a lot of damage next turn. I personally prefer the more aggressive lines, but I'm quite an aggressive player. I would just Kaleem Strain, hold the line, play a Imperial Guard, and push some damage this turn, try and set up lethal.
It looks like it is going to be the step back, clear the Ground Shaker.
Ooh, I like this even more.
That'll be 4 damage with the Charger this turn, and the Colossus still gets to come down. So really nice from S of Dawn here. I think had a couple ways to set up lethal there, whether it was this more aggressive Colossus line or the more defensive hold the line and Kaleem straining the Charger across to the far side.
Yeah, that's nice and clean, getting enough reduction on the Colossus there. Be able to dash it into that spot, set up potential lethal. Flame Burst, the only real answer here for Moonfaucet, dealing with that 2/3. It's not really enough, that's the problem. 7 damage goes to your orb next turn, and then what you're doing when you've got no Faeria left? +1 Grimguard? And even there's not even a land there to even make that play.
I mean, this is the thing right now, is the Flame Burst there is just to survive this turn. Because if you go for like the +1 Grimguard, your opponent could draw into something like a Choking Sand. Even the Flash Wind there was actually lethal because you could have moved the Grimguard out of taunt range, but it was Flame Burst to survive this turn, but you just can't draw into anything for the next turn. So that, especially with the extra creature coming down, is going to be S of Dawn taking the final game here and taking a 3-2 series win over Moonfasa.
Very well played from both players. Moonfasa was looking pretty bleak for him in the first 2 games, but managed to pull it back 3-2. He should be very proud of his performance against a monthly cup champion. Well played to him.
Yeah, it was a very, very well played series.
And we also have some bracket updates for you guys. I know Moobalt is being a bit of a pain and not linking the correct bracket, but bear with me, guys. I need to get this up for you so we can take a look at what's going on in the tournament. We know that Moonfasa has unfortunately fallen to S of Dawn, who's going to move on to play against Zarakar, who beat Don Pork 3-0. That is quite a result. Don Pork, a very established player. Kissagram falls to XYZ, who took 3-2, and is going to take on Alvar, who beat Teddy 3-0. That is
Alvar
quite a
only
match.
dropping 1 game so far in the first 2 rounds there.
Lou 90 beating Sunkichi 3-1. Going up against K-Holic, who's been performing very well. Defeated Gelgoog in the first round. Very, very strong opponent from Japan. Very, very successful ladder climber as well. And pilot of Yellow Rush. Then defeating another opponent from Japan. And now he's going to be able to take Lou on in the round 3 match. Sweetie falls to Kahilian, and Chief Bromdom carries on his wins with 3-2 in both of the previous rounds, so clutching it out there, and now he has to take on Kahilian, who's had kind of similar results. So there are a lot of upsets going on right now. I think the Alvar 3-0 on Teddy is a very good result for Alvar, since those 2 players are a very high caliber, and Kahilian beating Sweetie, again a very accomplished Faeria player, is a very good result for him too.
Yeah, definitely. Anytime you can knock out somebody who's won a monthly cup before, it definitely builds your confidence going into the future rounds. So big win there for Killian in the bottom side.
All right, guys, we're going to go to a break and set up the next match, which I do believe is going to be Alvar versus XYZ. So stay tuned. We'll be back very soon with more Faeria action.